Just a question, Joe. Most units have internal
Yeah.
pucks nowadays, so are you still adding pucks?
Yeah,
for
so
guys?
you want me to explain the difference between the two?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
All the Humminbird guys knows about casting rings, right? Good, okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's a good point too. So, manufacturer is going to be a little bit different on their specs. As a standard rule, I'll say your internal GPS, 5 to 8 feet accurate. You put a GPS puck on your boat, you're within a foot. So that gives you an idea of your accuracy and how well. I know, like, some of you guys that are perch fishermen and are pretty hardcore perch guys, nothing would probably drive you more nuts than trying to get, because how many times have you been 10 feet from a guy watching him like this all day long? And you're like, what the heck? I don't understand it. Well, it's because you're probably 10 feet from your waypoint, but you're like, no, he's not, no, this is my way. No, you're actually 10 feet from your waypoint because your puck either isn't accurate because you're using your internal, or you're just not taking the offset. So yeah, that's a great point, Martin. That's the two differences.
So I got a question about waypoints. Is there a software that you can use to upload them back into your system when you're home? Like, you go fishing, you mark up a few waypoints, maybe you have a system of, as you have a date and you know, that sort of thing. Is there a software you can take into an Excel spreadsheet, start typing in actual data that you could use, and then push it back
in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did, so when I was doing those
I
analyses.
absolutely hate putting waypoints down.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
It does.
It's like, okay, I want to fish. I don't want to go A,
And you like
B,
to-
C,
yeah.
4, fish, there's fish. And it's like, there's got to be a faster way.
Your hummingbirds, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't used it a lot yet. I don't know if Joe might touch on this. Hummingbird now has their new One Boat Network app. So they have an app, and I believe there is some waypoint management within that.
Active Captain.
Garmin's been there.
Garmin has Active Captain.
Lowrance is called, I'd have to look it up. There's a Lowrance one too. They all have, and you can look at your waypoints on your phone too.
So it has everything built in there. The cool thing about the Active Captain app is, as you can see, it actually stores my waypoints directly to my phone.
Yeah, and your routes and your trails.
And my routes, my trails. So say one day you're fishing with a friend and you're not on your boat, you now have your unit and your waypoint in your hand.
So that lays it on a Navionics map on your phone, or?
Right there. All my software, everything that I have updated into my unit is on this phone. And right directly through the Active Captain app.
And it is secure for you tournament guys. Salmon. I know guys are like, when we came out, I remember like Lowrance, guys getting phone calls from Lowrance like, is this legit? Is it secure? How do I know when it's not going to be a community shared thing? I'm like, guys, it's secure. Like, it's on your phone. Like, it's not going to everybody else. Like, there is settings that you can share things, but yeah.
A question over here.
Waypoints. I'm also Hummingbird, and I hate the lettering system. What I find really helpful is on the fish hawk has a catch log.
Yeah.
That I find almost, I think it's even more helpful.
Yeah.
And other people I know that have fish hawks.
Right there.
When I've explained it to them, they're either not aware of it or don't use it. But it's another thing that Bluetooths to your phone.
Yeah.
If I catch a fish, then I can look back and it automatically records depth, temperature. All I have to put in is
the 4XD.
The 4XD.
Yeah.
See, that's the
right there,
use of data. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I had no idea that they had that for a fish hawk.
It creates a diary.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
See, like, and this is the thing, right? So this is where, when you start back, way back when we started our conversation, how far do you want to get in, right? So like setting up your boat to have this technology to be able to function properly, because like you could have a fish hawk, you know how to use it, you love it, but there's another guy in the room that's like, this fish hawk's stupid, I don't know how to use it, but it's really, is it user? Like, you know what I mean? Like the integration that you can have, and I always tell guys this too, and I'm sure we've all done it with our units, like you're using Humminbird now, like how many times have you sat in the garage with a beer at your units and just like
Oh, yeah.
scrolled around and played with them and learned how to do things and move
set it
things
up.
and
It's really
sit
time on the water.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of having the apps now with most of these, and as Lawrence is coming out on Garmin, you could literally sit on the couch with your iPad or your computer screen and don't have to go out in the garage.
You don't have to watch Desperate Housewives.
Well, you can pretend. You can pretend, right?
You can pretend.
You just gotta situate it properly. Then.
But it's true though, like us tournament guys, before this all came out, I was using Navionics, the Navionics app. So I would put all my pre-fishing data in my Navionics app, and then I had a mag RAM mount, and I'd stick my iPad on my graph, like you said, managing waypoints.
Right.
So I didn't fill my graph up with waypoints, because then you go, what is this a practice one? Was this a good one? I'm not really sure, right? So my practice ones from pre-scouting over Google Earth and Navionics would be on that iPad, and then I would get in the boat and I'd drive around and be like, yep, delete, add, you know what I mean? And I would manage my waypoints that way. But now you
That's the beauty of the
you can do
Garmin
this.
app too, because Garmin bought Navionics about
Yeah.
2 years ago, I think, 3 years ago. So that's not Garmin software, that's actually Navionics. So all the good stuff from Navionics now belongs to Garmin.
It's unbelievable tool. Like you musky guys are the prime example of it. Like I know you guys are like moon phase and like it has to be like 15 different factors have to collide for you to catch that fish that day, right? So that kind of stuff matters to you guys, right? To have like his waypoint, like you're like a scientist with waypoints. I had no idea this.
Mad scientist.
Yeah, like I'm not that good. I'm like,
He's splitting the atoms.
yeah, like I'm like rock pile icon is rock pile. I'm not even kidding you, BF, big fish, and dollar signs.
That's a good one.
Like, there's a dollar bill icon on the Lawrence one.
Dollar bills is a very...
The dollar bill icon,
That's a big
that's like money. That's like this is the money spots. So when I'm like money, so those ones are in my graph, right? And then there's just like regular blue dots where like I was driving around, I thought I saw something, and I'll just drop a blue dot. But you got to be careful, because if you forget you were on blue dots, and then it gets messy. So this is probably the smartest to actually type it, but I'm too lazy. I just use colors.
Along that same point, so with my access to GIS information and using cloud computing,
I'm so hacky on your-
I was pre-fishing with a couple of other captains in a tournament, and the tournament was in Scarborough, but I was fishing the South Shore, so from Grimsby to the Niagara Bar. And so we used ArcGIS Online, and I set up what they call a quick capture app. And basically what it is you indicate that you caught a fish. It was just a single button push, and then your camera comes on and takes a picture. It captures your XY, it captures your timing, and now you have a picture of the fish that you just caught. You don't have to do anything else. That was it. One simple one push button to say this is where I'm at, kind of like a GPS. But then also it flips on the camera, you take a picture of whatever fish that you caught. I had a bump board at the time, so you can throw the fish on a bump board and take a picture of it. Oh, that was a 36-incher. That's a nice fish. So you start to get an idea of the fish that were caught, for pre-fishing.
What's that app?
ArcGIS Online.
ArcGIS.
Quick capture app, it's called.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is
Put it in the log.
you guys giving up a lot of. You got anything else? Anything small? You can use a Lake Erie small.
Is there anything on any of the transducers or fish finders and stuff like that that helps you kind of identify where that thermocline is, other than like a fish hawk?
Well, yeah, you can turn up the gain, and generally it'll come up as a bit cloudier, kind of a horizontal swath across your screen.
Cloud.
Yeah, so
Might see
usually
the
that denser water, it starts to pick up that dense water past the thermocline, and that's where you can start to see it on your graph. But you got to turn up that gain.
The color depends on your palette. So like if somebody says, "Oh, just look for the blue one," well, do you have the same palette? Do you guys all understand? Like, because there's different color palettes, right?
Yeah.
So like all these units have
8 or 9.
8 or 9 or 10. I think Garmin came out with like another. They have 15 now, and Lowrance added another 2. Like, but the color palettes are actually kind of important
Yeah,
if you
they
guys
are.
think about it.
Very important.
Everybody sees color differently.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right? So I sometimes don't agree when guys are like, oh, use the blue color on hard sand bottom. Really though? But what if the guy doesn't really see blue very
Yeah,
well, but he
yeah,
sees
right.
copper or brown, right? Or green. That's what he determines. I don't really know how much I buy into that. I do kind of follow it, but sometimes I like to try it with customers. Like if I take them out on like a lesson, I'll go to areas where I know we'll see fish, and then I'll play with palettes and then see what they can see is the best. Same with your traditional 2D palette. There's all those different selections. Like there's ones that look like that. There's like color palette like this. Like there's another traditional color palette like that. It's really whatever you see is the best, right? And then understanding that that's the mark of a fish on that color palette. Does that make sense? And then on that unit. Because a hummingbird marks different than a Garmin, and a Garmin marks different than a Lowrance. Like those palettes mark differently. So try to really understand that. And the easiest way to do that sometimes is where I've done it too, is I've literally graphed when I started to learn and was like, oh, I think this is fish. I put my camera down, I'm like, yep, that's fish. And then I put my camera back up, and then I drove around and looked at what I saw. Is literally how I did it to understand what I was looking at.
Touching on your point a little bit, how you said, can you see certain things in different perspectives, i.e. thermocline and stuff. Live imaging has its whole world of its stuff of how you see things differently.
Color palettes again.
Seeing bait on live imaging, we could talk about that, it's a whole nother topic too. The way you interpret bait on traditional versus live imaging is another whole cool thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I could literally see on live imaging, and I have some pictures on my phone I could show you guys. I have some pictures where you could literally see the bait ball on your screen, and I could see salmon separating the bait ball.
Yeah.
That's
Like
cool.
literally in the
Yeah,
bait
like
ball.
that.
You see the V open up. You see that fish in live imaging coming into the bait ball, and you see the bait ball open up. You literally see that fish in the bait.
That's
It's
neat.
open, it's literally split open the bait, and you can see that. So you sometimes see fish coming up from the bottom and opening the bait from the bottom, or fish coming from the top and opening the bait ball from the top. You literally see the points of entry in the bait. And actually how fast bait actually moves is really cool too. Versus traditional versus live imaging, to see sometimes how we think bait is around or how fast the bait is moving is incredible. And with the hashes and the grids on the live scope, you could see how big the bait ball is, really intent, versus on traditional, your cone is very narrow, right? Because that range that you have now, sometimes especially with the new 62, I've seen bait balls that run 400 or 500 feet. And you could, with the space, you could see it all the way out there, and you could kind of see it feather all the way to the back. It's super cool to see. And you could even pan on it sometimes. It depends on how fast it's moving. If you have the time to mess around with it. On the pole mount, I could literally detect and see which side is the larger side of the bait, and in turn kind of direct the boat to that. Sometimes the bait could be moving, left to right, or east to west, depends on how it's going, right? And you can now see that and see which side
Position your lines.
position it, like how large the bait ball
What
is.
speed do you run at the live scope?
What speed do
The boat run?
the speed of my boat?
No, when you're running live scope, is
Uh-huh.
there a range of a mile per hour that you're running?
Oh, okay. I see
2
what you're
miles to
saying.
5 mile an hour?
So so these guys are trolling, so it's different, right? But for you guys musky fishing, it's not. So what you're asking is when you use your side imaging.
The side image, you're running 2 mile an hour,
Two-
maybe 3 miles.
Oh yeah, no, you don't have. There's not a speed.
There's-
There's no
it's-
speed function in forward.
It doesn't have that, yeah. So I saw where you were going with that, yeah.
You kind of have your scroll speed very similar to like a 2D, but you cannot control the
Do you
speed.
change the refresh rate or anything like that?
No, none of
Because
that.
it's live.
It's like watching TV. So
there's
you
no-
remember like you go to everybody get seen your wife get an ultrasound or whatever. It's literally that. Like it's live. Like when the fish swims, like you catch the fish at the right angle, you'll actually see its tail. Like you can actually see it move.
Yeah, and jigging, if you see some of the videos online, not more so from a trolling aspect, but very much from like a casting or a jigging aspect, you could literally see that there's a classic live scope video where you see the muskie come in, and you see it's a muskie clearly. You see its fins, you see its tails, and you see him drop the bucktail down. You see the bucktail, you see him lift it, and you can see it open up, and you could literally see the muskie like literally open its mouth and hit the bait, and you see the full.
See, that's wonderful if it hits the bait. The problem with us is we'll see it, and then 3 weeks later we're still wearing down.
Your problem was that you started muskie fishing.
I got interested in forward-facing sonar, actually walleye fishing out of Dunnville, out of Maitland, and fishing, around Gull Island, near Rock Point, and I see a Z 21 coming in from inside the Mohawk Bay, and it's a walleye pro that's fishing in the tournament out of Dunkirk. Okay, so the Dunkirk PWT was on coming up that following weekend, and I was out fishing, with Dave from the store, and we were just trolling harnesses out, 25, 30 feet of water like we have, and it came out of the bay. I'm like, and there's no trolling rods, there's nothing, right? And it dawned on me, what's going on there, right? Like, why is he in there? And yeah, there's walleye in there, don't get me wrong, there's shallow water walleye and that sort of thing, but enough to make a tournament pattern was kind of intriguing. Well, sure enough, and you can Google it if you wish, the PWT tournament out of Dunkirk was won by Hoyer, and using forward-facing sonar. First and second place in the tournament was taken with forward-facing sonar. On our shoreline, they were actually catching fish towards Nanacoke, and also all the way down to Port Maitland. So you can watch that on YouTube if you want. It's pretty interesting. Caught my eye.
Oh, it's
Casting
a,
swim baits.
it's a wealth of knowledge. It's just so much information that you can gain from it. That's the key factor, right? You gotta still process it. You still gotta put it together. But the information that you could get, and like I said, the time that you could save, more so from a tournament standpoint, but even from a recreational standpoint, right? We still only get to fish a limited amount of time, so we want to make the most of our time. So if we could put ourselves in the right position and see what we need to see, or be in the right spot, rather than spend 2 hours or 3 hours looking for that spot or looking for fish, this is just another tool that makes it that much easier, right?
Does it drain a lot of power?
Draw is...
Like I said, you really got to start calculating your amp draw when you start building packages.
I think a lot. What's a live scope's probably in around draws about 5.
No, so the operating amps are like the
Yeah.
fused amps are different. So they usually double your fused amp is usually double your operating, but then your operating range varies on the unit and the power. So like your live scope box is like, again, it's the same as like a 10 or a 12-inch screen. It's like 1.8, 2.3, 2 amps, right? So like for you guys with 3 units, and then you're gonna toss a live scope on there, you're into like 2 group 31s.
Yeah, I
or
run 5 batteries in the boat.
yeah, so and then here's the thing, you're still gonna have that drop in voltage, right? Because of the amp draw on an AGM. So your live scope isn't gonna operate as good as you want it to, because the clarity is not gonna be there, because the voltage isn't gonna be consistently up. And especially you guys, because you guys are casting a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You're on your trolling motor more.
Mm-hmm.
A lithium setup for you is probably your next investment with your live scope. If you move to live scope, look at going to lithium and putting a lithium in your batteries, both in your trolling and your cranking, because that's gonna really optimize your fishing time. Your 2, you'll probably notice your trolling motor, you set it at 5 and you guys are moving down a bank. By the end of the day, that 5 is a 7
Well,
and then an
pretty
8.
good. It does pretty good. I'm running
Yeah.
mine pretty good on my trolling motor.
Yeah.
But
I
I run a big tiller, and I need the weight of the lead acid counterbalancing the kickers and hydraulic steering and all of that on the other side. So.
You got a little defensive for a second there. You're like, give me a break. Yeah, there is a little bit
I'll
of.
talk to you.
Yeah, we'll talk about, but there is a little bit of that. But I do notice more so in the bass side of things, when guys start rigging their boats with power poles, and then multiple units and everything, guys are like, man, I can't get out of the hole. And that's a big thing for big water guys, Erie, Ontario guys, because if you can't get out of the hole in rough water or walleye guys, you're spearing waves, and that's just dangerous to begin with, right? So this is where you start looking at, do I got to take some weight out of my boat? How can I do it? Lithium batteries, or you got to start transitioning to hydraulic jack plates so that you can get that motor up and down, right? Like, there's so many things that kind of factor into all of this, where like when you work with like Martin and I and stuff, we're always like, we're gonna think of that, like, hey, where are you going with this? Because you're gonna start bolting stuff to your boat, you're gonna change exactly the performance of your boat, right? I got a guy called me last winter, he's like, I want to put 10-foot power pole blades on my 18-foot Nitro, my Z7. And I'm like, yeah, like that's probably not a good idea, dude.
Really?
Right? Like it's just, you know what I mean? And he's like, well, what about this? And I'm like, honestly, if you're gonna start doing that, I wouldn't be bolting that stuff to your boat. I'd be looking at a proper jack plate mount and be, worrying about that sort of thing. So there is all that kind of factors. I know Martin does it a lot too. Martin can talk about it. Martin, how many times do you have to reinforce gunnels from just trolling and downriggers and like?
A lot of guys are having to replace their gunnels because
they're just bolting stuff to them.
yeah.
Well,
So it's the same sort of thing, right, guys? And the same with mounting all this stuff is like, you got two 12-inch graphs on your dash of your boat, and you're going to take it out on Lake Erie. Think about how it's mounted, because you might be donating one to Lake Erie.
we know a guy that happened to last spring.
Right?
Salmon tournament out of St. Catharines last spring. One of the guys in the tournament. Again, maybe some shoddy work, not the right setup. Rough day, shotgun start, blasts up out of the hole, hits the first wave, comes up, hits the second wave, complete gunnel, gone. Rods, downrigger, everything, completely. Just it hit a wave. The fiberglass let go. It wasn't fastened down properly. It wasn't overweighted. Lost everything. Downrigger, 4 rods that were on there, everything completely gone.
It's
the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, it's a big investment.
Anybody hit a GPS?
They actually did. And they hired a swimmer
To go get it all?
to go back. I don't think they ever found it, but they hired a swimmer to
find
go.
any of it?
I don't think they found anything. They sent him out that same day, and
Yeah,
it
I
was probably
remember,
like
yeah.
You'd be
2 feet
surprised if you
2 feet of viz, but
Yeah, there's a lot
You'd
of
be
current.
surprised if you get pretty good with driving around graphing and like side imaging and stuff, the stuff you find in lakes. Like Bay of Quinte for me has been by far the funnest. Every time I go there to fish a tournament, because I'm always looking for new water, I think I'm up to like 4 or 5 trucks. And with my, oh yeah, like I've got trucks, I've got ice huts. You know how many ice huts? Do you know how many ice huts I've found? It's unbelievable. Like I can't tell you how much is in that body of water. And then the forward-facing sonar is so good. I got a video on my social media of one. You can tell that it's a Dodge Ram
yeah.
because of the way the hood's shaped.
There's a
and the
there's a
grill
classic
and everything.
Garmin one that they run on their demo, and it's a school bus.
Yeah.
And you could see it. You could see it as clear as day. You could make out the windows, the door.
Like
it's a full school bus.
It's pretty cool, and you'd be surprised how many fish are around these vehicles. Railroad tracks, right? I find railroad tracks and just anything.
All right, well, we've hit just around 2.5 hours, and I know we could easily go further.
Holy cow.
A lot of good information.
These nights more often, and we try and do them as often as we can and spread things out with different information. But thanks, guys, for coming. I know they'll be willing to hang around for a little bit. If you guys want to corner them and bounce a couple specific questions off them, you can. Joe Rodrigues, Pure Power Marine, he's pretty accessible. And of course, Martin and I, and through the Grimsby Tackle channels, and Shane through FINtastic. You can look up Jason Neglia too on you're on you have a
I'm not. You can't find me.
no,
If anybody has any kind of questions, I'm more than welcome to give you my cell phone number. I take calls all the time, but I kind of like to flail a little under the radar, so I'm not a big social media guy or anything like that. But I'm more than willing to help out. I help out everybody anytime I I often get in a lot of trouble from Garmin because I probably field way too many calls than I should, and Garmin operates probably a multi-million-dollar call center, so they're like, just stop it. But I enjoy it, and I have great passion for it. So a lot of times I don't mind taking a phone call here and there if someone has a question on setup or an issue that they're having. I may not be able to re-rig your boat over the phone, but I don't mind answering a few questions.
All right.
You'll be
I don't
getting my
think I
phone
can
call.
either.
Friday, March 8th will be our salmon seminar at the shop, if that interests you. Otherwise, thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you around.
Appreciate it.
Anybody that has Garmin on their boat, come see me. If you have any Garmin products on your boat, come up and see me.